Children remember love in ways adults no longer can. The rain slid slowly down the glass walls of the Grand Meridian Hotel, turning the lights of Manhattan into blurred rivers of gold and white. Inside the ballroom, laughter floated beneath crystal chandeliers while servers moved quietly between billionaires, politicians, and women wrapped in silk gowns that cost more than most people's rent. Clara Bennett balanced a silver tray against her palm and kept her eyes lowered the way she always did. Quiet girls lasted longer in places like this. Invisible girls survived. Table 12 needs champagne, another waitress whispered as she rushed past. Clara nodded once and crossed the marble floor in silence, her black heels barely making a sound. At the far corner of the ballroom sat Ethan Calloway. Even from across the room, people moved differently around him. Slower. More careful. The kind of caution reserved for powerful men who could change lives with one signature. At 39, Ethan had built one of the largest investment firms on the East Coast. Newspapers called him brilliant, ruthless, untouchable. But none of those words mattered tonight. Not when his daughter sat beside him like a ghost in a white dress. Lily Calloway stared at the tablecloth without blinking. Small hands folded neatly in her lap, golden curls resting against her shoulders. She hadn't spoken in 734 days. Not since the accident that stole her mother on a rain-soaked highway outside Boston. Doctors had called it selective traumatic mutism. Ethan called it punishment. Every specialist in America had tried. Child psychologists, speech therapists, neurologists flown in from California and Switzerland. Nothing worked. Lily remained silent through every appointment, every Christmas morning, every birthday candle. Sometimes Ethan still woke at 3 in the morning thinking he heard her voice from another room. Then the silence returned and crushed him all over again. Clara approached the VIP table carefully. "Fresh champagne, sir?" she asked softly. Ethan barely looked up from his phone. "Leave it there." His voice was cold, distracted. The voice of a man permanently exhausted by grief he refused to show in public. Clara nodded gently and reached forward to replace the empty glasses. That was when she felt it. A tiny hand wrapping around her wrist. Clara froze. Lily was staring directly at her. Not through her. At her. The little girl's blue eyes widened slowly, almost like recognition blooming somewhere deep beneath the silence. Around them, the ballroom continued moving. Forks clinked against china. A violinist played softly near the stage. Rain tapped gently against the towering windows. But at that table, time stopped breathing. Clara swallowed. "Sweetheart," she whispered carefully. Lily's fingers tightened. Ethan finally looked up, irritation already forming in his expression until he noticed his daughter standing for the first time that entire evening. His face changed instantly. "Lily," he breathed. The child's lips trembled slightly. 1 second. 2 seconds. Then, in a voice so quiet it almost disappeared beneath the music, she whispered one word. "Mama." The champagne glass slipped from Ethan's hand and shattered across the marble floor. For one impossible second, nobody in the ballroom moved. The violinist near the stage stopped playing mid-note. A waiter carrying oysters nearly dropped his tray. Even the soft rain against the windows seemed quieter somehow. Ethan Calloway stared at his daughter as if the world beneath him had cracked open. Lily stood beside her chair, still clutching Clara's wrist with tiny trembling fingers. "What did you say?" Ethan whispered, his voice rough and uneven. Lily did not answer. The little girl simply leaned closer against Clara's side, her wide blue eyes refusing to leave the waitress's face. Clara could feel every gaze in the room turning toward her now. Wealthy strangers, security guards, politicians, curious wives in diamonds. She hated attention. Always had. Slowly, carefully, she crouched beside Lily until they were eye level. "Hi there," Clara said softly. "My name is Clara." Lily blinked once. Then she did something Ethan had not seen in 2 years. She smiled. It was small, fragile, but real enough to steal the breath from his lungs. Ethan felt his chest tighten painfully. Every doctor had promised progress. Every specialist had used words like breakthrough and recovery. But not one of them had managed this. Not one had pulled a single sound from his daughter's silence. Yet somehow this waitress had done it in less than 30 seconds. "Sir?" One of Ethan's security men stepped forward awkwardly. "Should we clear the room?" Ethan barely heard him. His eyes remained fixed on Clara. Blonde hair pulled into a loose knot. Pale green eyes. Calm posture. Nothing remarkable at first glance. And yet something about her presence felt strangely familiar. Like hearing part of a song he had forgotten years ago. Clara slowly loosened Lily's grip and stood again. "I am sorry," she said quietly. "I think she mistook me for someone else." Ethan looked down at the shattered crystal near his shoes. "My daughter does not mistake people," he said. Clara fell silent. Nearby, guests had begun whispering behind raised champagne glasses. The most powerful man in Manhattan looked shaken. Vulnerable. Human. It unsettled them. Ethan ignored every stare around him. "Lily has not spoken since her mother died," he said carefully. "Not one word." Clara's expression softened instantly. Genuine sadness flickered across her face before she lowered her eyes. "I did not know." Ethan studied her closely now. Most people reacted differently when they learned who he was. Nervous smiles. Forced sympathy. Greed disguised as kindness. But Clara only looked heartbroken for his little girl. Nothing more. Nothing less. Then it happened. Almost unconsciously, Clara reached down and brushed a loose curl away from Lily's face while humming softly beneath her breath. Just 3 quiet notes. Ethan froze. The color drained from his face. That melody. His late wife used to hum those exact notes while putting Lily to sleep every night. Not a famous song. Not something from the radio. Caroline had written it herself on an old piano in their Connecticut house years before Lily was born. Ethan remembered because she used to laugh whenever she forgot the ending. Clara stopped humming the second she noticed his expression. Too late. Ethan took one slow step toward her. "Where did you hear that song?" he asked. Clara's fingers tightened slightly around the silver tray. "What song? Do not lie to me." His voice stayed calm, but the air between them suddenly felt heavier. Across the ballroom, thunder rolled softly beyond the rain-covered windows while Lily continued holding onto the edge of Clara's black sleeve, like she was afraid she might disappear. Clara could feel the entire ballroom waiting for her answer. The chandeliers above seemed too bright now. Too hot. She tightened her grip on the silver tray and forced herself to breathe evenly. "I do not know the song," she said softly. "I must have heard something similar before." Ethan stared at her without blinking. "No," he said quietly. "You did not." Lily moved closer beside Clara, small fingers curling into the fabric of her sleeve again. The child's silence had always frightened people. Teachers avoided eye contact. Nannies lasted 3 weeks at most. Even family members eventually stopped trying. But standing beside Clara, Lily looked calm for the first time in years. Safe somehow. Ethan noticed it immediately, and that terrified him more than the song. "Daddy," Lily whispered suddenly. The word shattered whatever composure remained in him. Another whisper spread through the ballroom. Guests exchanged stunned glances while Ethan slowly crouched beside his daughter. "Baby." His voice cracked slightly. "Can you say that again?" Lily looked at him carefully, almost like she was relearning how voices worked. Her tiny chest rose and fell beneath the white dress before she lowered her eyes again. Silence returned. But this time it felt different. Alive. Hopeful. Ethan swallowed hard and stood back up. "You are coming with us," he said to Clara. Her eyes widened instantly. "Excuse me. My driver will take you wherever you need afterward. But I need answers." Clara shook her head gently. "Sir, I cannot leave during my shift. I will speak to your manager." "That is not necessary." Her voice remained calm, but Ethan noticed the flicker of panic behind her eyes. "Please," she added softly. "I think your daughter only had an emotional moment." Ethan almost laughed at the absurdity of that sentence. Emotional moment. His daughter had been trapped inside silence for 2 years, and now she was speaking to a stranger waitress while holding onto her sleeve like a lifeline. There was nothing ordinary about this night anymore. Before he could answer, an older woman approached carefully from nearby tables. Margaret Calloway, Ethan's mother. Elegant silver hair. Pearl necklace. Eyes sharp enough to read truths people tried to hide. She had watched the entire scene without saying a word. Until now. Ethan, she said quietly, you are frightening the poor girl. Clara immediately stepped back slightly. It is all right, ma'am. Margaret studied her face for a long moment. Then her expression changed. Just slightly. Confusion. Recognition. Something buried deep in memory. Have we met before? Margaret asked softly. Clara's breath caught for half a second. Tiny. Almost invisible. But Ethan saw it. No, ma'am, Clara answered quickly. I do not believe so. Margaret continued staring at her anyway. Strange, she murmured. Your eyes remind me of someone. Clara lowered her gaze immediately. Across the ballroom, thunder rolled again while rain streaked down the towering glass windows overlooking Fifth Avenue. The pianist near the stage quietly resumed playing soft jazz, but the atmosphere had shifted completely now. Ethan could feel it. Like the night itself was pulling him toward something he was not ready to uncover. Then Lily did something impossible again. Slowly, carefully, the little girl reached into Clara's apron pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper sticking out from the fabric. Clara's face lost color instantly. Lily, sweetheart, give that back, she whispered. But the child already unfolded it. Ethan frowned. It was old sheet music, worn at the edges, water damaged slightly, and written across the top in delicate handwriting were 4 words that made his heart nearly stop. Caroline's Lullaby. Ethan looked up slowly at Clara while the sound of rain swallowed the silence between them. The rain had not stopped by the time Anna stepped out of Le Bernard and into the cold Manhattan night. Water shimmered across the empty sidewalks while yellow taxi lights blurred through the storm like fading stars. She tightened her gray wool coat and walked quickly toward the subway entrance, her thoughts louder than the city itself. Marcus Blackwood. The name kept echoing in her mind like a warning she should have listened to years ago. She should never have spoken to his mother. She should never have let her guard down. But for those few minutes, sitting beside an elderly woman who smiled with genuine warmth, Anna had forgotten what it meant to hide. Her phone vibrated inside her pocket. A message from her landlord. Rent overdue again. Anna closed her eyes briefly before slipping the phone away. Across the street, a black luxury sedan sat silently beneath the rain. Inside, Marcus Blackwood watched her disappear into the subway station, while his driver waited for instructions. Should I take you home, sir? The driver asked carefully. Marcus did not answer immediately. His fingers rested against the expensive leather seat, while his thoughts replayed every second of the conversation. The way Anna signed fluently. The way she carried herself with quiet confidence despite wearing a waitress uniform. The sadness hidden behind her eyes whenever personal questions appeared. None of it made sense. Follow up on someone for me, Marcus finally said. Anna Martinez. I want everything. The driver glanced into the mirror. Yes, sir. Back underground, Anna leaned against the subway wall as tired commuters moved around her without notice. She preferred it that way. Invisible people survived longer. The train arrived with a metallic scream, and she stepped inside, choosing the emptiest corner. Across from her sat a mother holding a sleeping child beneath a worn winter blanket. Anna smiled faintly at the sight before looking away. Her chest tightened unexpectedly. Once upon a time, she had imagined a different future for herself. Lecture halls, international conferences, a career built on languages and diplomacy. Instead, she memorized dinner specials and carried wine bottles for strangers who barely looked at her face. The train rattled through the darkness while rainwater slid down the windows like tears. Meanwhile, 50 blocks north, Marcus entered his penthouse overlooking Central Park. The city glittered beneath him in silver reflections, but for the first time in years, the silence inside his home felt heavier than usual. His mother sat near the fireplace reading quietly when he walked in. You are thinking about the waitress, Evelyn Blackwood signed immediately without looking up. Marcus loosened his tie with a tired sigh. You noticed. Evelyn smiled softly. I notice everything. He poured himself a glass of sparkling water before standing near the massive windows. There is something strange about her. Not strange, Evelyn corrected through graceful hands. Wounded. Marcus turned toward his mother slowly. You spoke to her for less than 10 minutes. Evelyn lowered her book onto her lap. Sometimes pain recognizes pain faster than words do. The room fell quiet after that. Outside, thunder rolled across Manhattan. Marcus stared into the storm while Anna's face returned to him again. Calm eyes. Controlled voice. Intelligence hidden beneath silence. She had looked at him differently than everyone else did. Not with admiration. Not with fear. Almost as if his money meant nothing at all. And somehow that unsettled him more than he wanted to admit. The next evening, Le Bernard glowed beneath crystal chandeliers and polished gold trim, while wealthy guests filled the dining room with quiet laughter and expensive perfume. Anna moved carefully between tables with the same calm precision she always carried, but tonight the atmosphere felt heavier somehow. Every employee knew Marcus Blackwood had a reservation, and whenever he entered the restaurant, tension followed close behind him. "Table 12 is yours again," Sarah whispered while arranging silverware near the service station. "Good luck." Anna nodded once without answering. Across the room the front doors opened. Marcus stepped inside wearing a charcoal overcoat darkened slightly by the rain outside. Conversations softened almost immediately. Even the manager straightened his posture. Wealth had a way of changing the temperature in a room before a single word was spoken. Marcus removed his gloves slowly while scanning the dining area. Then his eyes found Anna. Just for a second, neither of them looked away. "Mr. Blackwood," the manager greeted nervously. "Your usual table is ready." Marcus barely acknowledged him. "I would prefer the corner booth tonight." The manager blinked in surprise. That booth belonged to Anna's section. "Of course, sir." Anna inhaled quietly before walking toward the table with menus in hand. "Good evening," she said professionally. "Would you like sparkling or still water tonight?" Marcus studied her face carefully. "Still." His voice sounded calmer than usual, but that somehow unsettled her more. Anna poured the water with steady hands while several nearby employees secretly watched the interaction. Everyone expected Marcus Blackwood to criticize something eventually. He always did. The lighting, the food temperature, the speed of service. Sometimes simply because he enjoyed watching people panic around him. "You look tired," Marcus said suddenly. Anna paused for half a heartbeat before setting down the bottle. "I did not realize concern was included with the entree tonight." A faint smile touched the corner of his mouth. "So you can joke. Only when necessary." Marcus leaned back slightly, watching her with growing curiosity. "You disappeared quickly after work yesterday." Anna reached for her order pad. Most waitresses do not linger outside restaurants hoping billionaires follow them home. Before Marcus could answer, a loud crash echoed near the kitchen entrance. One of the younger servers had accidentally dropped a tray of wine glasses. The sound shattered through the dining room like gunfire. The young man froze instantly, pale with fear as broken glass scattered across the marble floor. The manager rushed over furiously. "Do you have any idea how much those cost?" he hissed under his breath. "I am sorry," the server stammered. "I slipped." Several guests turned to stare while the young employee struggled to breathe under the humiliation. Marcus watched silently from his booth. Then, without warning, another customer several tables away snapped his fingers impatiently. "Can someone competent please bring my steak before it gets cold?" The cruel remark pushed the young server closer to tears. Anna looked toward the trembling employee. She recognized that expression immediately, the desperate fear of losing everything over one mistake. Slowly, she walked into the kitchen and returned moments later carrying a fresh dinner plate. Steam curled into the air as conversations resumed around her. Marcus frowned slightly, confused by her expression. Then it happened. Anna stopped directly beside the rude customer who had mocked the young server. Without raising her voice, she tilted the plate forward just enough for the entire expensive meal to slide directly into the man's lap. The dining room fell silent. Forks froze midair. Glasses stopped moving. Even the piano player missed a note. The customer shot to his feet in outrage while sauce dripped down his designer pants. "What is wrong with you?" he shouted. Anna stood perfectly still, her blue eyes calm beneath the golden chandelier light. "Now you have something truly worth complaining about," she said softly. Across the room, Marcus Blackwood stared at her in complete silence. And for the first time in years, the most feared millionaire in Manhattan looked genuinely impressed. No one moved for several long seconds. The customer stood frozen beside the table. expensive sauce staining his tailored pants while whispers spread across the restaurant like smoke. Anna remained perfectly calm beneath the chandelier light, one hand still resting lightly against the empty silver tray. Marcus Blackwood slowly rose from his seat. Chairs shifted nervously around the dining room. Employees lowered their eyes. Even the manager stopped breathing for a moment. The furious customer pointed directly at Anna. "Did you just see what she did?" he snapped loudly. "This woman assaulted me." Anna did not react. She simply looked at the trembling young busboy still standing near the broken wine glasses. His face had gone pale with panic. Marcus adjusted the cuff of his charcoal suit before speaking at last. "Daniel," he said quietly to the customer, "you were asked 3 times to stop humiliating the staff." The man stared at him in disbelief. "You are defending her?" Marcus glanced briefly toward Anna before returning his cold gaze to the customer. "I am correcting you." Silence crashed across the room again. The manager looked completely lost now, shifting nervously between both men. Daniel let out a sharp laugh filled with embarrassment. "You cannot be serious." Marcus stepped closer slowly, calmly, dangerously calm. "This restaurant survives because people work here with dignity," he said. "You mistook money for permission." The customer's face reddened instantly. Around them, dozens of wealthy diners pretended not to stare while secretly listening to every word. Finally, Marcus reached into his coat pocket, removed a black card, and placed it on the table. "Your dinner is covered," he said coldly. "Now leave." The customer opened his mouth to argue again but stopped the moment he saw Marcus's expression. A few uncomfortable seconds later, he grabbed his coat and stormed toward the exit while the entire restaurant watched in stunned silence. The front doors slammed shut behind him. Rain and thunder swallowed the sound outside. Anna finally bent down to help the young busboy gather the broken glass. "Careful," she whispered softly. "You will cut yourself if you rush." The young man looked close to tears. "I am sorry." "For what?" Anna asked gently. "Accidents happen." Marcus watched her quietly from several feet away. No performance. No attempt to impress anyone. She had risked her job to protect someone weaker than herself, and now acted as though nothing extraordinary had happened. It unsettled him more than he expected. Most people wanted something after acts of courage. Attention. Reward. Recognition. Anna Whitmore seemed to want only peace. The manager finally hurried over, sweating visibly. "Mr. Blackwood, I deeply apologize for tonight. I assure you this behavior does not represent our establishment." Marcus turned slowly toward him. "Which behavior?" The manager blinked. "Sir, the waitress defending your employee," Marcus clarified. "Or your customer publicly humiliating a 19-year-old kid while management stood there doing nothing?" The manager fell silent immediately. Nearby employees exchanged nervous glances. Anna stood up carefully after placing the final broken piece into the tray. "It is fine," she said quietly. "The situation is over." Marcus looked at her for a long moment. "No," he replied softly. "It is not." Something in his voice made Anna uneasy. Not anger. Something heavier. Curiosity mixed with recognition. As if he had finally noticed someone the rest of the world had overlooked. The piano resumed playing softly in the background while guests slowly returned to their meals, though conversations remained quieter than before. The energy inside the restaurant had changed completely. Marcus walked back toward his table but did not sit immediately. Instead, he removed his expensive watch and placed it beside his untouched dinner plate. "Miss Whitmore," he said calmly. Anna stopped. "Yes." Marcus met her eyes directly. "Sit with me for 5 minutes." Every employee in the restaurant froze again. Anna stared at him without expression while thunder rolled beyond the windows. Then she gave the smallest shake of her head. "I do not think that would be appropriate." For the first time all evening, Marcus Blackwood smiled faintly. Not because she challenged him, but because she was the only person in Manhattan who still dared to say no. The silence after Anna refused him felt heavier than the storm outside. Marcus Blackwood remained standing beside the table while nearby guests pretended not to watch. No woman ever said no to him in public. Not investors. Not journalists. Certainly not waitresses earning hourly wages beneath crystal chandeliers. Yet Anna Whitmore had done it without hesitation. Without fear. 5 minutes, Marcus repeated calmly. That is all I am asking. Anna adjusted the silver tray against her side. And I already answered. Her voice stayed soft but steady. Across the dining room, employees exchanged nervous glances. Sarah nearly dropped a wine bottle while pretending to polish glasses. The manager looked seconds away from a heart attack. Marcus studied Anna carefully. Most people rushed to fill silence around powerful men. Anna allowed silence to breathe. Somehow that unsettled him more than insults ever could. You embarrassed a customer tonight, he said quietly. He embarrassed a teenager trying to support his sick mother, Anna replied immediately. Marcus noticed the smallest tremble in her fingers before she hid her hand behind the tray. Not fear. Anger. Controlled anger. You knew you could lose your job, he said. Some things cost more than jobs. The words landed harder than she intended. For a moment, Marcus simply looked at her beneath the warm chandelier light, while piano music drifted softly through the restaurant again. Then his expression changed slightly. Less guarded. Almost thoughtful. Sit down, Miss Whitmore, he said. Not as an employee. As someone I would like to understand. Anna hesitated this time. That alone surprised her. She should have walked away immediately. Wealthy men always mistook curiosity for entitlement. But there was something strange in Marcus's voice now. Not arrogance. Exhaustion. The kind carried by people who trusted nobody anymore. Slowly, she placed the tray onto the empty table beside them and sat across from him at last. A collective gasp nearly moved through the entire restaurant. Marcus ignored it. Your manager looks terrified, Anna observed quietly. He thinks I am going to destroy the restaurant because a waitress challenged me. Are you? Marcus looked down at the untouched steak cooling beneath the restaurant lights. I have spent most of my life destroying things, he admitted softly. The honesty caught her off guard. Rain tapped against the tall windows while distant thunder rolled over Manhattan. Marcus loosened his cuffs slightly before speaking again. Why did you really do it? Anna frowned faintly. I already told you. No, Marcus replied. You protected that kid like it was personal. Anna looked away toward the rain outside. For several seconds, only the piano filled the silence between them. My younger brother worked in restaurants when he was 16, she said finally. People treated him like he was invisible. One night, a customer humiliated him in front of everyone until he quit. Marcus listened carefully without interrupting. What happened to him? Anna's eyes darkened slightly. Life happened. The answer carried far more pain than the words themselves. Marcus noticed the old silver necklace resting near her collarbone for the first time. Simple. Worn. Important. Nothing about Anna matched the world around her. She moved through luxury like someone visiting a country she no longer trusted. You are educated, Marcus said quietly. Your vocabulary gives it away. Your posture too. Anna smiled faintly without humor. And you are observant when you are not busy intimidating entire dining rooms. To his own surprise, Marcus laughed softly. A real laugh this time. Nearby employees stared openly now. None of them had ever heard Marcus Blackwood laugh inside the restaurant before. Anna noticed it too. And somehow that frightened her more than his anger would have. Because cold men were predictable. Lonely men were not. Marcus leaned forward slightly. Tell me something honestly, Miss Whitmore. What? His gray eyes held hers steadily across the candlelight. Why does it feel like you have been disappointed by people with money long before you ever met me? Anna's smile disappeared instantly. The question struck too close to something buried carefully beneath years of silence. And for the first time all evening, Marcus realized he had finally asked the wrong question. Anna's expression changed so quickly that Marcus almost missed it. The warmth disappeared from her eyes first. Then the calm. What remained behind was something colder. Older. The kind of silence people carried after trusting the wrong person too many times. She leaned back slowly in the booth while rain continued sliding down the tall restaurant windows behind her. That is a dangerous question for a man like you to ask, she said quietly. Marcus kept his gaze steady. Why? Anna let out a faint breath through her nose. Almost a laugh but without humor. Because wealthy men usually ask personal questions right before they decide how much damage they can afford to ignore. The words landed heavily between them. Nearby tables continued pretending not to listen, though the entire corner of the restaurant had grown strangely quiet again. Marcus noticed Anna reaching instinctively toward the silver necklace resting near her collarbone. A habit. A shield. "Who hurt you?" he asked softly. Anna's eyes lifted sharply. "See," she whispered. "That right there." Marcus frowned slightly. "What?" "You assumed there had to be one villain." Her voice remained calm, but her fingers tightened subtly around the necklace chain. "Sometimes it is not one person. Sometimes it is an entire system built by people with expensive watches and polite smiles." Marcus sat back silently. No one spoke to him this way. Not investors. Not executives. Certainly not women sitting across candlelit tables inside Manhattan restaurants. But Anna Whitmore did not sound angry anymore. She sounded tired. Deeply tired. The kind of exhaustion that settled into someone after years of surviving disappointment quietly. "You studied law," Marcus said carefully. Anna looked away toward the rain again. "For 2 years. What happened?" This time the silence lasted longer. Even the piano music seemed distant now. Finally, Anna spoke without looking at him. "My father worked maintenance for a pharmaceutical company in Brooklyn." Marcus listened closely. One winter, he discovered financial records proving the company knowingly hid dangerous side effects from patients. Marcus's expression hardened slightly. He knew exactly how those scandals worked. "He tried reporting it internally first," Anna continued softly. 3 weeks later he was fired." Her voice never trembled, but Marcus noticed the way her hand remained wrapped tightly around the necklace now. "Then lawyers got involved. Expensive ones." Marcus already understood where the story was heading, and somehow that made it worse. "My father lost everything defending the truth," Anna said. "The company buried him in legal fees until we lost our apartment. Then his health collapsed 6 months later." Marcus lowered his eyes briefly toward the untouched steak between them. "Cold now. Forgotten." "I am sorry," he said quietly. Anna smiled faintly again. People with money always say that after the damage is done. The words should have irritated him. Instead, they unsettled him because part of him knew she was right. Across the restaurant, Sarah watched nervously from behind the bar while pretending to clean glasses that were already spotless. She had never seen Marcus Blackwood sitting this long with anyone before, especially not with genuine silence between conversations. Marcus looked back at Anna carefully. "What was the company called?" he asked. Anna hesitated. For the first time all evening, uncertainty crossed her face. Then she answered softly, "Wexler Biotech." Marcus froze instantly. Not visibly, barely even physically, but inside him something stopped cold, because he knew that name. 10 years ago, before building Blackwood Capital into a billion-dollar empire, Marcus had briefly invested in Wexler Biotech through one of his former business partners. He remembered the lawsuits, the scandals, the executives who disappeared quietly before the media storm fully exploded. At the time he never looked deeper. It had just been another business disaster buried beneath dozens of headlines and acquisition meetings. But now Anna Whitmore sat across from him with tired blue eyes and a silver necklace wrapped around trembling fingers because of decisions people in his world once walked away from untouched. Anna noticed the change in his expression immediately. "You know the name," she said quietly. Marcus did not answer right away. Thunder rolled outside again while the candle between them flickered softly against the polished table. Then very slowly Marcus Blackwood looked directly into Anna's eyes and realized with growing horror that their lives had crossed long before this restaurant ever existed. Marcus Blackwood had negotiated billion-dollar mergers without blinking. He had walked away from lawsuits, betrayals, and corporate collapses with the same cold expression that made investors trust him and competitors fear him. But sitting across from Anna Whitmore beneath the soft chandelier light, he suddenly felt something unfamiliar pressing against his chest. Shame. Real shame. Anna watched him carefully from the other side of the candlelit table. The change in his face was subtle, but she noticed it immediately. Men like Marcus survived by controlling every expression, every reaction. Yet the moment she mentioned Wexler Biotech, something inside him cracked quietly open. You invested in them, she said softly. Marcus finally nodded once. Slow. Honest. Years ago. Anna looked down briefly at her hands folded together near the silverware. Of course you did. There was no anger in her voice anymore. Somehow that felt worse. Marcus leaned back slightly while rain continued whispering against the windows outside. I was not involved in the lawsuits, he said carefully. I barely knew what was happening inside the company. Anna gave a faint smile without humor. That is usually how people with money describe disasters they profit from. The words hit harder because they were calm. No shouting. No accusations. Just truth spoken quietly enough to make it impossible to escape. Marcus stared at the untouched glass of water beside him. For years he had convinced himself distance removed responsibility. Investors invested. Lawyers handled consequences. Executives disappeared. Life moved on. But now the daughter of one ruined employee sat across from him wearing a faded silver necklace because her family lost everything while people in tailored suits walked away untouched. What was your father's name? Marcus asked quietly. Anna hesitated before answering. Thomas Whitmore. Marcus froze again. This time visibly. He knew that name too. Not from newspapers. From a private meeting almost 10 years earlier. A tired maintenance supervisor had once tried speaking during an emergency board discussion before security escorted him outside. Marcus remembered the man because he refused to yell. Refused to beg. He simply stood there holding a folder against his chest while executives ignored him like background noise. Your father came to one of the meetings, Marcus said slowly. Anna's eyes widened slightly. You remember him? Marcus swallowed once. He wore a blue jacket. Anna stared at him silently now. And he kept saying patience deserved honesty. The candle flickered between them while the noise of the restaurant faded into the background completely. Marcus remembered something else suddenly. Thomas Whitmore had not looked angry either. Just exhausted. The same exhaustion sitting now inside his daughter's eyes. Anna lowered her gaze toward the table. He died thinking nobody listened. Marcus felt the weight of those words settle heavily into the silence around them. Nearby employees still watched discreetly from across the restaurant, confused by the strange intimacy of two people speaking so quietly while carrying years of invisible damage between them. Marcus loosened his tie slightly for the first time all evening. Your father was right, he admitted softly. Anna looked up sharply. That does not change what happened. No, Marcus said. It does not. He reached into his coat pocket slowly while Anna's expression hardened immediately again. Another wealthy man preparing to solve guilt with money. Marcus noticed the shift instantly. Instead of removing cash, he placed a simple business card on the table beside the candle. Blackwood Foundation Legal Recovery Division. Anna frowned faintly. What is this? 3 years ago, Marcus said quietly, I started funding legal support for families destroyed by corporate negligence. Anna looked unconvinced. Why? Marcus held her eyes steadily. Because eventually you get tired of pretending success erases the things you ignored on the way up. The honesty in his voice unsettled her more than arrogance would have. Outside, the storm had finally begun to calm. Rain softened against the windows while distant city lights reflected across wet Manhattan streets. Marcus stood slowly from the booth and placed enough cash on the table to cover every employee's tips for the night. Then he looked down at Anna Whitmore one final time. Your father deserved better, he said quietly. Anna's fingers tightened around the old silver necklace near her collarbone. Marcus gave a small nod before turning toward the exit. Halfway across the restaurant he stopped suddenly. Without facing her, he spoke one final sentence into the silence. And so did you. Then the most feared millionaire in Manhattan walked out into the rain alone while Anna Whitmore remained seated beneath the chandelier light, staring at the business card beside the candle, and realizing respect felt far heavier than revenge ever could.